We need to talk about Donald Trump's just released brand new official portrait. And actually, before I get to Trump's new portrait, let's go ahead and dispense with J.D. Vance's new official portrait as well, because he had one taken as the incoming vice president. And here's J.D. Vance's new official portrait, standing there looking like he's employee of the month at the car dealership. No disrespect to those who earn a living selling cars, by the way. I'm not trying to compare you to J.D. Vance. No offense intended whatsoever. And I think that's all the attention that J.D. Vance and his shitty portrait deserve for now. Here's Trump's portrait. This is his brand new official portrait as the incoming president of the United States. And let's just take this in for a second. And then let's compare this to the official portrait that was released while he was president. And this one was from 2017. And you see him standing there with that mirthless, hollow, death's head grin of his. And then this one is his portrait that was released prior to his previous inauguration. So this is more of a direct equivalent to the new one. And you can see they have a lot in common. In the one from October 2017, Trump is also standing there just kind of glowering at the camera, making a grumpy face, which he or someone on his team incorrectly assumes will confer gravitas upon him. This is not the portrait of a serious person. And there are two kinds of unseriousness, because unseriousness is not always a bad thing. There's benign unseriousness, and that would be like when somebody wears their Star Trek cosplay uniform to jury duty, right? As you hear about every once in a while, somebody will do that. Look, I think that's silly. I think that's goofy. I would never do that. But it doesn't really hurt anything. You know, it's like, okay, whatever, do whatever you want. You know, that's benign unseriousness. And then there's a more dangerous kind of unseriousness that we see from Trump and people in his circle that is exemplified by things like Trump's practice of governing via social media posts or blithely disregarding established norms in terms of governance and diplomacy, that sort of thing. And also releasing portraits like this. Releasing photographs like this as official portraits to troll the left and to elicit a cheap pop from his sycophants on the right. A lot of people noticed right away, and it's pretty obvious, that this new official portrait of Trump's is modeled after his mugshot. The mugshot that he had taken after he reported to the authorities after he was charged in Georgia. And if we just want to compare the Trump mugshot to some other famous celebrity mugshots, because so much has been made about the Trump mugshot in Trump world, like that mugshot has been held up like a banner in Trump world. And so much so that now it has become the basis for his new official portrait. And I've never thought that the Trump mugshot was all that impressive, especially when you compare it to other celebrity mugshots. Like, just take a look at a few of these. Here is Frank Sinatra. I mean, come on. Frank Sinatra's mugshot compared to Trump's mugshot, no contest. You can't even see his famous blue eyes in that shot because it's black and white. And yet he is a way more impressive figure in his mugshot than Trump is in his. How about this one? Al Pacino from 1961, from before he became a famous actor. Look at this bad motherfucker. Doesn't he look like a gangster from the 1930s? That's a guy you do not want to mess with. That is an impressive looking mugshot in stark contrast to Trump's mugshot. How about this one of Johnny Cash? Now, this is a very famous mugshot, though technically it's not officially a mugshot. This was taken by the guards at Folsom Prison when Johnny Cash came there to perform as kind of a gag. So it's in the form of a mugshot, but Johnny Cash had not actually been arrested when this mugshot was taken. Although I'm pretty sure Johnny Cash had been arrested a few times in his life, and maybe there are some official Johnny Cash mugshots floating around, but I don't recall ever having seen any Johnny Cash mugshots other than this one, but be that as it may, still way, way cooler than Trump's mugshot. Or what about this one of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1956? And Martin Luther King Jr. had been arrested prior to this mugshot for his role in the Montgomery bus boycott, which protested segregation on public transportation. It was incited by Rosa Parks and her act of civil disobedience and refusing to move from her seat on a segregated bus that led to a massive bus boycott to protest racial segregation. And Martin Luther King became a leading figure in that movement and was arrested as a result of that. And that led to him then becoming a very prominent figure in the civil rights movement in general. And the Montgomery bus boycott wound up being one of the pivotal events in the American civil rights movement. So that's why Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested and had that mugshot taken. And just to remind you, the Trump mugshot was taken after he reported to the police after having been charged with election interference because he couldn't accept the fact that he lost the 2020 election because he's a soft little crybaby. Trump's mugshot, the original mugshot, was not impressive. This official portrait that is an attempt to recreate that mugshot, it's not impressive either, except to those who are already in the Trump cult. And a lot of the people in that Trump cult, I've seen them on social media reacting to the release of this official portrait, and you see this phrase over and over again from the really hardcore Trumpers. They say, "Oh, this portrait goes so hard. Oh, the portrait goes so hard." It's an old man making a grumpy face. Calm down, you pathetic simps. My God. Have you no self-respect? And here's the thing about this portrait, and the whole reason I'm even spending a video talking about it. To you and me, to those of us who are outside the bubble, this is obvious and cringe-inducing and kind of pathetic. But this is dictator shit. Releasing an official portrait that looks like this. This is dictator shit. This is Trump attempting, in his obvious, incompetent way, to present himself as a strong man, as someone to be feared and respected. It's not actually intimidating, but it's an attempt to be intimidating. And that should concern us, seeing as how we live in a democracy, supposedly, and our democratically elected leaders and representatives are there to serve the interests of the people and to serve the Constitution. Does that portrait look like the portrait of a man who is trying to be a servant of the people? So even though we find it pathetic, the intention is worrying, as are the circumstances leading up to Trump taking office next week. Circumstances like the Republican Party rolling over shamelessly to please Trump before he has even officially assumed office. Things like earlier this week, reports of House Speaker Mike Johnson removing Republican Representative Mike Turner from the Intelligence Committee because, according to Turner, it was over, quote, concerns from Mar-a-Lago. Because Turner is not he's one of the few Republicans who is not a 100% Trumper. He has broken from Trump on several things. And Trump doesn't like that. Trump wants absolute obedience. So even though Mike Turner is a Republican, and even though I probably disagree with Mike Turner on pretty much everything, he wasn't in line enough with Trump. And so now he is off the Intelligence Committee and will be replaced by someone even more loyal to Trump. That should concern us, as should the lack of power that the Democratic Party has to do much more than slow down the Trump agenda at this point, as should the continuing relative lack of spine shown by the Democratic Party. Who knows how much of a fight they'll even try to put up. These are all things that should worry us and concern us, that are much more important than this goofy, silly-looking portrait of Trump. But that portrait represents a lot of those things and represents a lot of the attitudes that go into these more important things that we should be and must be worried about. These next 4 years with Trump in the White House will be a shit show and a horror show and a clown show. And when you look at that portrait that Trump just released, one thing is for sure, that no matter what else happens over these next 4 years, we can't say they didn't warn us.